Oh my god, everyone, I can't handle the Dragalia Digest. Hello and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, where everything Dragalia Lost can be found, and perhaps everything that crosses over with Dragalia Lost, as we'll be discussing today. So if you haven't seen the Dragalia Digest yet, definitely check that out. I'm going to be going into everything today. If you want to watch it for the first time yourself, there is a link in the description below, and we're going to go into everything. I'm going to spoil the ending for you guys, so if you want to watch it first, go ahead and head over there. Basically, it is a Faye channel, or if you're not familiar with that, it's kind of like a mini Nintendo Direct for Dragalia Lost. So, super cool. This was dropped out of nowhere last night. We expected at Reset we'd get some news about the half anniversary and perhaps the Gala showcase, but I never expected we'd get this, let alone completely unannounced. So I am really pumped for it and for the half anniversary and everything that entails. We're going to go ahead and play the video, and I'm going to talk over some of the exciting news that we got. Presentation was really cute with Not and the voiceover, her reading off a thank you to all the players for making it to the 6-month mark. One of the first things we found out about is we're going to get a login bonus, basically going from the 26th to the 14th. Those dates are in Pacific time at the top, and you're going to be able to get 10 days of bonuses from that. So total, if you log in 10 days during that period, you get 3 tenfold summon vouchers and 2,000 Wormite. This is already pretty nice, pretty generous, comparable to what we got during the New Year. So if you were feeling a little disappointed with the single summon tickets we got in the countdown to this point, rest assured, you're going to get a lot from that. Then we hear about this retweet campaign, which, you may win or you may not win, but I'll post a link to the tweet so that you can enter this and at least give yourself a chance. So this is kind of a crazy giveaway, but 10 players who retweet this tweet will be able to win one of each 5-star dragon. And what's kind of crazy to me is they're actually showing limited dragons here too, like Dragon Yul'Jan, Marishi 10, and they're even showing the free dragons you get from beating the high dragon trials like High Midgard Sormr and High Brunhilde, and even some limited time dragons that were exclusives and were freebies from raids like Pele. Then 100 other players will get to pick one dragon of their choosing. So even if you don't get the big prize, that's still pretty good. That is still a very valuable reward. And granted, with thousands of people retweeting this, your chances of winning are small, but still it's worth participating in, I think, just to give yourself that chance. Probably don't get your hopes up for anything, but you never know. And hopefully somebody who watches these videos or is part of our community will actually be able to get the win. Now, we also hear as part of this retweet campaign, there are some guaranteed rewards, and this is what I like even more. So they'll be giving players up to a 10-fold summon voucher and 30,000 Eldwater depending on how many retweets that campaign gets. I'm pretty sure we're already past the 10,000 mark, but you can check for yourself when you go enter the retweet campaign. The 30,000 Eldwater is a big deal because of how expensive co-abilities are to upgrade, and right away, even if you're not upgrading any co-abilities, that is a free promotion of a 4-star character to a 5-star, or even a 3-star character all the way up to a 5-star. That's enough Eldwater to do that, and the free tenfold is kind of an extra icing on the cake. So, retweet campaign, if you're going to give all players something, I am all aboard. That is really cool. Then we get some other promotions for the half anniversary. So I was expecting half anniversary we'll get half stamina, that type of thing, but instead we're getting double drops, but it's staggered. So starting tomorrow at Reset, or tonight at Reset basically. So what this says to me is there is probably going to be a story event somewhere in this period. It's a pretty long duration to be running these promotions, and I think if they want us to actually take advantage of these, if you're not familiar, the story events are the most freeform in Dragalia Lost, where you can just run any type of quest or any type of content in the game, and you'll collect a story item as a reward that you'll use to unlock certain character stories and unlock certain rewards from a treasure trade. So we haven't gotten one of those since Valentine's Day, and I think that makes a lot of sense to overlap with these promotions. That is my expectation. I don't know if that'll start April 1st, if it'll start tomorrow. It seems a little bit early because they didn't preview it here, but I do think we'll probably get some story event in that period. Then we actually get news of the Gala itself, or Gala Dragalia, and we get Ranzal. So this is going to last until the end of the month. Ranzal comes out as an attack unit. We'll get into him in more detail after this, because in the game we actually did get a preview with his kit, his stats, and everything. But just watching his animations, the fact that he has unique mechanics, like a unique bar, 2 unique bars in fact, that build up on the side of the screen, it feels befitting of these Gala units, and it feels like they're really special. So I think it's cool that they give Ranzal some shine and some mechanics. He needed a little bit of an upgrade from his original form, and if you're a big Ranzal fan, hopefully this Gala character gets you excited to try summon. But like I said, we'll get more into him. Then we get perhaps the more interesting summon showcase, the Dream Summon Special. And I say showcase, but this really seems more like a one-of. Basically, this is a special pack that's going to be available at reset tonight until the 14th. And this pack grants you a 10-fold summon voucher and 1 adventurer or dragon of your choosing. So this is really, really awesome. I've said in the past, this is one of the things I would consider spending on. When you get a guaranteed adventurer or dragon of your choosing, there's no possibility for disappointment. And I was wondering how much this would cost, but I'm pretty sure, looking there again, that 1500 diamantium is what the cost is going to be. And if that's the case, if you haven't been buying a lot of the store packs in Dragalia, bought a lot of diamantium, there is an $8 pack that you can buy once as a beginner that gives you 1500 diamantium. So if I'm getting this value for $8, this will definitely be a purchase for me. Now if it costs more than that, which I don't know why it would, but let's say that 1500 diamantium is a bonus in the pack rather than the cost of the pack, then I'd have to think about this a little bit more. And either way, I'd have to think a lot about who I actually want to get out of this. So from my perspective, you probably want to get an adventure or a dragon you don't have, because for a dragon you already have and you just want to get unbindings of, you can just get that or farm that through the game or the monthly packs from Sunlight Stones. So that to me seems like the worst choice. A dragon you don't have could be a good idea, but I feel like most people get more excited about adventurers. And for me nowadays, I have at least 2 5-star dragons in each element, so I will probably go for an adventurer. But then the question is, do you prioritize gameplay or do you prioritize waifus or husbandos? That is still up in the air for me, so I have to think about what I'd want to do with this. The good thing is it lasts a couple weeks, so I would wait on this until you do all your Gala summoning, potentially until we hear about that dragon giveaway, you never know, and then make a decision about who you want to get from this. Hopefully you can just hold on to this ticket and it doesn't make you decide right away. That way you can purchase it and decide in the future if you want to do that as well. Now we get into the 1.6 update content, and that highlights the 2 worm prints that you can equip now. So there are limits, there's caps on how much each ability stacks. That's something I've tried to look into as much as possible. I've pinned it on our Discord. Basically, some of the highlights are skill damage can go up to 35%, critical rate can go up to 15%, resistances to afflictions can go up to 100%, and resistance to elements can go up to 15%. There's lots of testing and experimentation to be done. Force strikes can go up to 40%, but basically you have to try and equip different combinations and see what you can actually achieve. So I stand by a lot of the theory crafting and ideas I put forward in my original video about dual worm prints. That was more of just a brainstorming session about how I think that the meta might change with dual worm prints, what I think the status quo will be. I think most of that is still going to be pretty valid. So I'm pretty happy with dual worm prints so far. It makes the endgame content a lot easier for many characters, so that is really cool. Set room conditions for co-op play. I haven't really noticed this yet, but there are some UI improvements in the game where it's easier to navigate between your teams, it's easier to organize based on element, so I appreciate that. I'm probably not going to be one to set conditions for co-op play. I don't really care who brings what into my room, so I don't think this will change too much. Hopefully this doesn't make matchmaking harder, but I haven't noticed any difference yet. Then we get new Void enemies in Void battles, and Void Agni appearing on April 11th. So pretty cool. Void Agni looks super sweet with his dark and shadowy frame. Looks properly villainous, I feel. Void Zephyr looks kind of like normal Zephyr with a little bit of difference, but this to me says we're going to get Hybernhilda Bane weapons on that date. Because Void Zephyr is a win boss, it drops these high Midgardsormr Bane weapons. Void Agni is a flame boss. It makes sense that it would be the parallel but for Hybernhilda. And I think they're willing to do that because then the next piece of news we get is the new dragon being added to the Advanced Dragon Trials. So High Mercury's trial will be added on April 17th. This is very exciting as well. So it took a little bit longer than it did for Hybernhilda to release last year, but High Mercury looks sweet, the design looks really pretty and really cool. I'm just excited it gives us something new to do. Thankfully, it sort of justifies the investment I've made into Eleonora, since although I have Luis, I think it'll still be possible to beat this with Eleonora, and having raised her to 50 nodes, that is my plan. Now I have my max unbound High Midgardsormr, so all I really need to do is try to grind out Imperial Onslaught for those water insignias to get the special worm print that protects against her. So if you're not already now from this point to April 17th, I would encourage you to do your water Imperial Onslaughts for your dailies. They show off what adventurers might be helpful, and they even say explicitly you'll want ways to counteract the bog affliction, so there's no messing around or no question of whether this is going to freeze you or something unexpected, which is cool. I'm glad they make it really clear. Finally, though, we get our biggest news from this digest. Faye flies across the screen. I got the sense that something was going to happen, but once Faye flew across the screen, I knew. And I think this is really smart because with this video coming out on the Nintendo mobile channel, that is primarily a Fire Emblem Heroes channel. That is where the new trailers drop. That is where Faye channel drops. So I think that this crossover could be really far-reaching. I see a lot of Faye tubers who dabble in Dragalia Lost. That is what inspired me to create my channel, was because I liked Fire Emblem Heroes and I watched a lot of Faye tubers. So I'm really happy. Welcome to Dragalia Lost if you're checking it out for the first time, and I hope that you have a good time here. As for who I think would appear in the crossover, my hope is I would most like to see a mix of the original characters from Faye and of some OG Fire Emblem characters. So my ideal banner would be like a 5-star Marth with a 4-star Alphonse and Sharina, and as a dragon, a 5-star Tiki. That is kind of my dream scenario, just because I think that the OCs from Fire Emblem Heroes are a little bit weak to sell a banner on their own. Someone like Tiki or Marth, I think, add a lot of appeal. Plus, the interaction is more fun when it's characters from different worlds. This would actually make for a really cool story event itself. Maybe we could even get a falchion as a sword that had like a Dragon's Bane ability. There's so many possibilities with Fire Emblem because dragons occupy such a rich part of the lore in that game series, and it also opens the door for other Nintendo collaborations because a lot of people thought we were only going to get Cygames crossovers like Lily and Albert, since that's what the precedent was, and for a time, that's what was believed to have been said in a Nintendo investor talk about the game. But I think now that the IP has differentiated itself enough, it's been given time to kind of grow out and be its own thing, they feel more confidence in these type of crossovers. That's the lens I'd like to look at it through, not through a more cynical lens, which I know exists, which is that this will make more money for both games, most likely. But I am really pumped about it. We don't get any info about when this will happen, so I'm going to save for this, and hopefully we get some really cool adventurers and we get some cool dragons that come out of this. Maybe there will be a corresponding crossover into Fire Emblem Heroes where some Dragalia Lost characters will appear. That would also be really neat. But now let's switch over to the actual game itself, and I'm going to talk briefly about Gala Ranzal as we wrap up for today. Alright, so here we are in the game with our boy, Gala Ranzal, looking so cool in his Gala outfit. You can leave everything to me. Gala Ranzal is an attack unit, and he has the strength to back this up. It is a solid 20 or so more strength than what we saw on Gala Cerise, and he does have lower HP though, 90 or so lower HP. So unlike Gala Cerise, he is not in the upper echelon as far as highest base stat totals in the game, but he compensates for that somewhat by his stats being more distributed towards strength, which is kind of harder to get a higher amount of in the game, and also by being melee, which means that unlike Cerise, he has a full defense stat of 10, and Cerise only has a defense stat of 8. So it says he's been appointed a commander in the new Alberian army. He wears armor made by his friends and has traded the axe of his mercenary days for a sword. He's still as boisterous as ever, but now has the dignity and presence of a leader. So I absolutely love this. I love that we just got this exposition and this backstory of Ranzal in the last chapter of the story in chapter 7. And so to me, it would be great if we continue to get backstory on one character per chapter, and then that character shows up in kind of their advanced form or their promoted form on the next gala. That would be really cool. So as far as Ranzal's kit, he has Cyclone Blade. It sounds straightforward, but it does get a little more complicated when it comes to his abilities, but basically this deals wind damage. And then Wind Tactics, which puts him in a special state where his next 3 Force Strikes are powered up and can damage far away enemies. So we saw in the digest that basically this sends out tornadoes, mini tornadoes that shoot out pretty far, and it increases the entire team's defense by 10% for 10 seconds. This is pretty relevant for high dragons. When you use this at an opportune time where you're taking some unavoidable damage, that can make the difference, and especially for high Mercury, there are characters like Louise, who has Strength Double buff built into her kit. She wants to be receiving defense buffs in order to power up her strength. And having a character like Ranzal, so you're not just relying on Lowen to give out those strength buffs, is kind of nice. Now for co-abilities, we have Dragon Haste up to 15%. Pretty standard. And then the abilities, Experiences Boon of 2. Grants the user an attack gauge and a burst gauge, so we saw these in the video. The attack gauge fills when regular attacks connect with enemies, while the burst gauge is filled when Force Strikes successfully connect. For every completely filled gauge, the user's defense is increased. Any filled gauges are consumed when using the Cyclone Blade skill, increasing its power. So, 2 questions off of this. One is going to be, is this defense increase permanent? And the fact that there's no time limit, to me it says that it is. And then the second thing is, when it says the gauges are consumed, does it consume that defense buff also? Or does it just drain the gauges down to 0 and you keep any defense buffs you already have? Those are my 2 questions, but either way, these Gala characters have been powerful. I mean, we only have Cerise, but I can't imagine this being really bad. This is probably going to be pretty good. Sword Adventurers want to be using like a couple basic attacks and then a Force Strike, or 1 basic attack and then a Force Strike if you're trying to break the boss. So this is a very normal part of their play pattern. Relentless Spirit 2 prevents Freeze and Bog with 100% resistance to both. That is awesome. That's similar to what we saw in Cerise. And then skill damage of 30%. Very straightforward, very direct and to the point. But that is going to hurt with the Cyclone Blade. That is going to be a nice ability. Now, it does hurt a little that Ranzal doesn't have multiple attacking skills, but given Cyclone Blade is probably fairly quick to charge, being the first skill on a sword unit, that skill damage will probably see some good use. And as far as Ranzal goes, I think that something like Valiant Crown might be a good Wyrmprint for him, because the 5-star Wind Sword can buff Ranzal's defense. He's getting defense buffs from Experiences Boon, and he's getting defensive buffs from Wind Tactics. So Strength Double buff seems like it'd be a good ability. Of course, when you're casting defense buffs on yourself, you are eating into the time that you could use spending that strength up. So that is the trade-off with a Wyrmprint like that, but this guy seems like an absolute tank, as well as a powerful damage dealer, so I'm really pumped to see how he actually shakes out, what the SP costs are on the skills, and what the specifics are on the abilities. We're going to take a look at as much of that as possible tomorrow, and I think I will probably summon for Ranzal, or at least summon and dip my toe into this Gala tomorrow and go ahead and spend some Wyrmite. I've been saving up for a while. I think this is a good time to invest. We'll take a look and investigate tomorrow in what capacity Cerise is back, if at all. I think she'll probably be back and still have her 0.5% chance, but we don't really know if that's the case or not. Let me know what you think of all of the news with the digest, with the gala coming out, everything, the little changes I didn't even talk about, like how you can play in 2 times speed now, and your adventures just look ridiculous auto-battling at double speed. It is actually really fun to do that. I'm really pumped, like I said, about all of the changes today. See you tomorrow, where we'll get into the actual half anniversary itself. Maybe there will be an event that starts right away tomorrow. We're gonna find out. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Take care, and I'll see you next time.